So just for the video, we're about to do some code words problems. And, we'll do some React after that, then we'll end up with code words problems. So you're free to jump in, Jay.
All right, yeah. I should be sharing my screen right now. If you guys can see that.
Yep.
I am. Okay. Actually, it is completed. So it's not uncompleted. All right, let me make sure that I remember which problem used the, okay, yeah. It's to parse integer. Now, the way I did this problem, I probably did not have to iterate this way. Decided to do so because I felt it was way easier. But just to give some context to the problem and let me know if this is too small, and then I can zoom in and make it a little bit bigger. So if you guys can't read it, then please let me know. But the goal of this kata is to convert a string into an integer. The string simply represents the number in words. For example, one, the word one is the number one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can read the rest. Let's see, the minimum number is 0 inclusively, and then the max number is 1,000,000 inclusively. So then I have 3 places, the ones or 4, the ones, tens, thousands, and millions. Yeah, oh, and also this and. So this actually was tricky when I was doing it. It didn't really have to be super duper tricky, just if it contains and, then don't add it. But because of the way I was iterating, I had a little trouble with that. And you'll probably understand why once I start the problem. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to open a terminal.
So, my understanding, so the function takes a string of like is it take a string of words and you're supposed to convert it to a number? What was it? Or
yeah, so you take a
okay.
string. Okay, you take a string and convert it to numbers. Yep, that's exactly what it does. Right.
Cool.
I'm going to open a desktop, and I'm just doing this just to make it a little bit quicker. Here, let's see. I'm gonna make a directory. Class. I'm gonna cd into there, and then I'm gonna and a index.html and a oh, no, is it? Oh, no, man, tripping. Okay, and I know y'all can't see that. I'm gonna reshare my screen. Add that one in there. Okay, so y'all should be able to see that now.
Yep. I can see your visual video code.
Perfect.
And
all right, so I'm gonna do a little bit of setup. Got a little, because I've done this problem already, I got a little bit of a head start. So I'm gonna do a tad bit of the cheating. Do a little bit of the cheating, and then, which this part will not make any sense for now, but it'll all make sense in due time. In due time. Yeah, and this is, so this constant final is just for me to basically see the code on the screen very easily, very quickly. I don't have to do anything special. Oh, I could have did the Roman numerals problem, but I did a parsing problem too. The Roman numerals problem was fun. I forgot I just did that one. Okay, cool. So just going over the problem one more time. I'm basically taking a number string and then I'm converting it into actual digits. Demand number is 0, max number is 1,000,000. And then I got to make sure to have that and in there. So I got to make sure I account for it if and it is in there. So we're going to set up the problem. Matter of fact, let me do this the best way, actually. Best practice. Copy. And that out of the way. Paste. Turn this into a arrow function. Just because I like to do that. Pop that over here. This over here. So, and then I'm going to open this up in Live Viewer. Just so I can see my problem while I'm working on it. So the way I have this set up, and I guess this would just be a quick rundown, is it's the final code here. I made a section called answer, this little p tag right here. So anything that displays that returns from the problem, that returns from this problem will be inputted into the constant final, and then it'll be logged in the console, and it'll also be written in the written here in place of the answer. So I'm just replacing the inner text of this little div that I created, which is very simply, you know, a p tag that spans the whole width of the screen. So just so you kind of know a little bit of what the magic is with this. Yeah. So that's that. This is actually from a last previous problem that I was doing. I'm going to take and I'm going to put in some starter code. And this is just so I know. Oh, shoot. Undo. Erase. There we go. And so this is just so I know what my answer is supposed to be. So now when I get something close to what my finished code will look like, I'll be able to aggregate this out. My answer look the same, and then I won't have to worry too much about it. Okay, but since I did it before, we just know it's gonna turn out well. You just know, right? So do some starter here, or load some constants in, or declare some variables. It's actually the best way to put it. And this is just millions place, hundreds place, thousands place. This is my interpretation of the problem. So I've seen a few different answers that were way more concise and it was just artful, some of that stuff. But this is my interpretation. So I'm setting basically an object. So this number is here. These are all of the possible numbers that I can have, or at least not all of the possible numbers that I can have, but just the different numbers that exist. Just to note, this is something that I've noticed. 90 is spelled two ways in this problem. So I have 90 twice just to account for spelling 90 with an E and spelling it without an E. Like, yeah, I don't know. That's in this problem though. So that's just a note. And So I'm going to, let's see. Well, I just go, yeah, I just follow my solution straight. But this part is going to seem a bit uh, out of place at first. It'll make sense a little bit later. But this 3 place value function that I'm creating is so I'm parsing each section of my code. So I got the millions place, I got the thousands place, and then I have the hundreds place. The way I set the problem up is it chops the string into threes essentially. So it finds the word 100 or it finds the word million, and then it extracts everything before it. Finds the word 1,000, extracts everything before it, and then leaves the 100, of course, because you only got 3 more digits at the end. After that, then I start to go through and parse each of those sections and then multiply them by their respective place values. So of course, million is multiplied by 1,000,000, 1,000 by 1,000, 100 by 100. So this 3 value or 3 place value parse is literally just cycling through and parsing the each is parsing the 3-digit values within that place value, if that makes any sense. And if I'm confusing, please let me know that I'm confusing you. Ask me a question and then I'll answer for you. If I can, of course. If I can't, then, and this is funny. Because, yeah. So I'm splitting my substring to turn it to variables, separating it by words or by spaces, actually. And getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let me slow down. So this is my array of words. So 200 and then 46 is actually one word after being separated by a space. So that's how that'll look once I run this function substring.split. Let's see, I'm gonna start a for loop. This for loop is what I'm going to use to iterate through my array. And this is the funky part right here. This is the fun part. So I'm not going to set my iterative variable inside of my equation. I'm actually going to kick that mug out. I'm going to iterate piecewise, and then I'll tell you why. So when I was creating this problem, or when I was creating a solution, I was having an issue with variables being undefined. And that's just, it's due to the way that I'm handling each of these variables. You know, as I figure their value, replacing variables and such. So when variables do not exist, they're undefined, of course. So if there's no and in here, then due to the way that I'm handling my variables, you know, as I parse through this array, honestly, as I map through this array, more or less, I am, sometimes I come up with undefined, give me a second. Sometimes I come up with undefined, there you go, values. And so, you know, that was, yeah, it was causing way too many errors. So when I iterated, so when I iterated this way, then I would do what I needed to do to any given value. Then I would move on instantly to the next value. So it wouldn't try to cycle through and run each of my checks on the value here. So this is actually, this was the key to me solving the problem right here. This I equals is greater than or equal to array dot length. Like this, when I put this together right here, when I ran this check, this solved my problem. I had everything else. I did not have this, but this is the reason. So I iterate here because, by the time I end my problem, or by the time I enter my 100, if I had nothing else, like if I had just 200, when I ran this check for and, it was coming up undefined. Array at I equals 0, and then I plus plus. Now, for the sake of time, and this is the only reason I'm doing it this way, for the sake of time, I've not just, gone and solved it with you guys from scratch again. I'm just going through the solution that I've already, found or created. But if we had a chance to do this, if we had more time, then I would have went on and solved it with you guys live. And then the logic will be a little easier to follow, because I'm pretty sure right now the logic is a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, it's fine to go through and explain all of it too, because even I'm kind of looking at it and I'm kind of like confused about like some of the logic. Yeah. But yeah, however you want to do it, like it's fine. After this problem, we'll do the React stuff. So don't worry about like the time as much.
Okay. I keep that in mind. If I present again, then I'll make sure that I pull up the problem, and then I'll probably just solve it live, but use my solution as kind of a template. But it's like I said, I'm definitely going to explain some of this logic a little bit better once, and that is actually wrong, so I'm going to change that. Yeah. Okay. And then array at this number's 10, this number's 1s. All right, cool. And then move into the next value. Note, I also did this problem like half sleep, so it was rough, definitely rough. So it's some brute force in here, because I really wanted to get this done, just to make sure that I had a cool problem to solve for class. So yeah, it's a little bit of brute force, little bit of the brute force, little bit. All right, cool. All right, and then we're gonna go down here. This is my for loop. I'm done with the for loop. So, and this is actually a function. So what this function does, and then like I said, if you got any questions, then please feel free to ask. But what this function does, is it'll take the value and hold on, give me a second. So current. Yep. 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 Yeah. Uh-oh. Okay. Yep. Check numbers, ones, tens, and check tens and ones. Of course, that's just odd. Okay, cool. We good. All right. So now I'm gonna step through. Now I'm gonna step through this whole problem and kind of go through it again. So what this problem does, or what this function does right here, this whole 3-place value function, because that's all I got here. So there's 3 value parts. It'll take a string. In this case, I call it substring, but it's whatever string. It doesn't matter what string it is. It takes the string. It checks first to see if the string contains the word 100. This could just be 46, and it wouldn't matter. But it checks to see if the string contains 100. If it does, then it will take that word, because I would have already cycled through, and this is another part. So I would have already cycled through this because this is going to be my first element. So this is element 0 or index 0. It would cycle through first, check and see if this word is 100, check and see if I is greater than array.length, because I'm iterating here. It will, just in case it's just 100 and it's only 2 words in there. So I don't need to check for anything else, because literally it's just 100 or 200 or 300, whatever the case. So there's no and or anything else. So I just break out of the function, I mean. So anyway, takes the first word, checks to see if it contains 100, checks to see if it contains and then check to see if it has the dash. The dash is specifically for these little placeholders here, or these little this word here, like 46, 48, 52, etc. They were good and consistent in adding the hyphen here. So it was easy for me to just make sure that I included that there. Even if it didn't though, I would still just take the word itself and then replaced it with the number. So each of these gets replaced with the number every time this for loop iterates. So for example, this is 2. It'll go through, it'll check, it doesn't contain 100. It's the first element, so I didn't iterate I, and it's not, greater than array.length at this point, of course, because it's 0. And I is 2, 4 in this case, or 3 in this case, 1, 2, and 3, because 46 is 1. It'll check that, go through, 2 is not and 2 does not include a hyphen. So we're going to go down here and we're going to push out the array. We're going to change this word to the number 2. And then this numbers at array.I is because I have this numbers object here. So my numbers object at 2, the value is 2, right? Easy. So that's what it's doing. It's basically pairing up the words with their respective, the keys, essentially, with their respective values. So all of these words are keys, and then each of these keys have the equivalent value, the value that's equivalent to the word value, or the value that the word would have. So these are key value pairs. Essentially, I have all the keys, so I'm using this function to aggregate out values, right? So that's what the 3 place value parse does. Because I'm chopping up, and I haven't done it yet, but I will, because I'm chopping up my values, my strings into 3 sections, my values into 3 places, then I'll take each of those and I could just run this function, and I'll know that this function will work and will give me digits no matter the configuration. So no matter what the word is. And then at the end, this little reduce right here is, I'm basically taking this and then I'm just reducing it down to I'm reducing the sum. So basically I'm taking and adding all the numbers up. So I replace each of the values with a number. This 2 becomes 2, this 100 becomes 200, and then replaces this 2 with the 0. So it doesn't have a value now. The 46 becomes, well, gets split up, right? Make sure if it includes a hyphen, then I split it. So this 46 gets split up and then becomes 40 and 6. So it splits it by the hyphen is what I do. And then I take each of those words, the 40 and the 6 in this case, and then I add them together, 40 plus 6. And then I iterate to get to the next, the next value. But by that time, this is going to be the end of the function because there's nothing greater than this place right here. So yeah, by that time I'm kicking out the function. I'm going to the top. If it contained an and, it'll still work because what I do is I just turn the and to a 0 in my array. And then I iterate to the next word, which is 9 times out of 10 times out of 10 actually, gonna be this unless it doesn't exist. So, and then you wouldn't have the and, right? So, there's that. And what I want to make sure to do is I want to make sure to return that parse this value here. I want to make sure to return that from this function. So this is actually just the whole function. Boom. And then this is the reason why I'm iterating through my array. Instead of iterating here, I'm iterating as I continue forward because I can now start dodging those unknown values. And who knows, I may be able to, which I haven't tested it yet. I may be able to iterate actually through my for loop at the end. I feel like I may have tested it. I don't know. I don't remember actually. That I'm thinking about it. But that is the logic behind this 3-value parse. So now what I want to do is I want to take my values because now that I can take all of my 3-digit values and parse them, I know that my whatever word that I have is going to have a certain structure, right? It's going to be something 100, 40, 50, 60, and 7. So it's going to be hundreds, tens, and ones. So I'm going to have the hundreds place, I'm going to have the tens place, and the ones place. And then it's going to have like the big place value, like million. Hundreds, tens, ones, the big place value like 1,000, and then the end is just going to be hundreds, tens, and ones. That's the structure of these. That's the structure of the. And I got an undefined solution, but that's because I haven't passed anything into this function and I haven't returned anything from this function. So yeah, that's the structure. And I'm gonna see if I can find that. 24 optional. Right here. Right. So 7,000 or 783,000, right? 919 words are English. In our English language, the way we break down numbers has this structure. So it always has this structure. So 3 place values, the big place value, 3 more place values, another big place value, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like the SI system in that way. You get 3 place values, then a prefix. Just like in the SI unit, you get your prefix, not place values. They just a prefix. Like kilograms and decograms, etc. Anyway, so now what I want to do is I want to start separating these big place values, right? So we're going to start separating out. We're going to separate out our million. We're going to separate out our 1,000 place, and then we're going to separate out our hundreds place. Right. So we're going to boom, million, string. So at the million, we're going to split our inputted string, because this is a string that we're inputting into the equation now. Oops. String dot split into by million. So this is going to return an array, and I could have separated this honestly, so I didn't have to type it again. This is going to separate our string by the word million. So I'm going to have, you know, like if this was 246 million, it's going to separate out literally everything before this, and then 72. I just make it 72. So it's going to separate everything by the million. It's going to separate 246. And I had this space in here, honestly. And then the second value in this array will be 72. So the first value is 246. The second value is 72. So I'm going to take only the first half of this as my million, right? Make sure to trim it up because there are spaces in words, and sometimes they'll cause errors actually, because I don't, in my key value pairs, I don't have spaces. So if I was to have a space in this string, after I chop this up, like that space right there, cool little space that caused so many problems, a little problem right there. If that space existed, then it would start messing up my problem. So I gotta trim it off. I gotta trim them edges up, both the front and the back. I could have just trimmed the end, honestly, and it would have worked, but I trimmed both the front and the back. Now, the rest of my string is going to be this value. So my millions place is going to be 246 in this case. I actually want it just to make it expected output. I like to keep my expected output here, right? And now I'm replacing this value, because this is just a string now. I trimmed it, but now I can run my 3-place value function on there, right? Because I have 3 places, my hundreds, my tens, and my ones. Boom, run that in there like that. Boom, put that in there. And now I'm literally replacing this million, these words, with the parsed value. I'm going to do the same thing for 1,000. For the sake of time, I'm just going to copy this. Y'all seen it already. It looks pretty, I know. Don't be too amazed. Calm yourself down. Go get some water. You know. All right, cool. String. This is the last value. So this is the thousands place. So I'm doing the same thing, multiply it by 1,000. I probably could have done this in the, I could have honestly done this inside of the function if I would have added like a place value like that. Then I could have just, tossed that mug in here like that. And then I could have just ran it through the string. At the end, I could have just multiplied parse by my place value. And then I would have instantly been able to, I'd have been able to get this without having to put that there. I mean, I could have done some cool, funky stuff, but I was just wanting to get the answer because it was a long night and I needed to sleep. But now that you've heard that, so what this is going to do and what this is checking now is to see if the string is empty. So, for example, if I was just to have 42 million and that 72 go bye-bye, then, or the 246 million, and it's honestly, this is a value that's greater than a million, but anyway, 246 million, it's going to take this value and now it's not going to do anything else. The string doesn't include 1,000, so it's going to ignore this. But if I did not put this check there, even though this string did not contain 100, it would try to it would have tried to parse the end. So I'll show you what I mean. So if I run this function outside, if I ran this function outside of this check, then it will always run this function. But once again, I was telling you about those undefined errors that I was receiving. If I was to run that undefined value in here, because it would literally be blank, then it would just constantly pop out undefined. So I had to put this check here to check if the string was empty after I ran this thousands. So if I ran the millions, it's gonna automatically turn that million, this, into a number. Okay. It's gonna check to see if there's thousands, but it doesn't contain thousands. So the rest of the string is empty now. Doesn't contain 1,000, skip that. Doesn't contain anything else because after 1,000, there's only hundreds. Skip that. And now we just return our millions plus our thousands plus our hundreds plus our hun. I'm sorry, somebody talking? Somebody had a question or something? Oh, okay, I thought I heard something. Boom. And so that's that. Like this is the whole function. Boom. Answer the various. Ding. Okay, I got sting, somewhat cool. So, and this is why you're supposed to copy and paste. This is why Isaiah tell us to copy and paste. But I was being hard-headed. And so I had to pay for it. There we go. But 46 million. And this is my expected output. We can test this with this 783,919. We can test that with this. And it'll give us what we're looking for. So yeah, that was my problem. It was fun. Honestly, this was super duper fun. Because I didn't know where I was going to start with this thing at first. But yeah, I feel like this is the one I started. Did we do this in class? I feel like we started this one in class.
On Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday, not Sunday. Isaiah was like, I don't remember this class. I don't remember none of this. What you talking about? We started this in class. No, it was Tuesday. I think we started this problem in particular Tuesday. So I'd like to thank the class for helping me out with the solution. But yeah, like we really didn't know where to start when we started this problem because it just looked like so much. And I started with this. So funny enough, I actually started the problem breaking it up into sections. I didn't have this part first, but I started it off breaking it into sections. Then that's when I came up with this function because I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to constantly parse through these 3 value sections anyway. So it's going to be 100 something, hundreds, tens, ones constantly. So instead of constantly typing that, like you taught us, I created a function that did that exact thing. Now, honestly, I could have created a function for this and that would have also, kind of helped. I could have actually put it in the 3-place value function and had it split the string by the inputted place and then take the place value and multiply it. So I could have made this all one function had I desired to. But yeah, just in brute forcing it, kind of wanting to get done, not wanting to dawdle, Here we go.
I was actually going to make a suggestion too for you to split that up into another function. Another thing that I would say, if you can open up, so 3-place value parse, right? It's 40. So it's line 42 to 78. It's about 30, like a little over 30 lines of code.
Oh yeah.
You generally don't want to. It's normally considered clean to keep your code at 10 lines of code. And if you must go above 10, you can make sure it's under 20 lines of code. So But that being said, I think there's potential there's a way to potentially break this up or to make this a little
Hmm.
bit more concise. Um, and I'm just speaking towards like what's generally more clean, but what you will see on a job, you will see functions that large. But it's always better to like try to make them as slim as possible. So yeah. But yeah, overall, like good job with the question. It do look like it's a complicated question to even solve. I mean, I wouldn't know where to even start if I started it myself. So yeah, definitely an effort.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I was thinking about going through and recursing this just to kind of see how hard I could boil it down. But like I said, for the sake of just being done, it was like, all right, cool.
Yeah, and
But
another thing is that like those like incrementing I, the way you do it, I wouldn't get into the habit of doing it like that. Like there has to be another way to do this because this looks very complicated. Like imagine this breaks and like some random new person saw this for the first time. They'll be looking at
oh
this
yeah,
like very confused. They'll be like, okay, why am I incrementing I? Sometimes here, why am I not doing this? Sometimes over this way. Like generally be able to figure out a better solution for it. So yeah.
I definitely. Who knows? I probably could. I probably could take this I and have it increment at the end of running this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I feel like if I do that, I'll run into the undefined error that I was running into before. Because it'll take that same place. And as I start switching values and things like that, it'll break on me. So that's why I just step by step, day by day by day. But that's why I step by step started iterating just to make sure that every time. So yeah, exactly. If I didn't run this one, then I wanted to make sure that it didn't iterate. So
Yeah.
it iterated after every one, and I'm constantly stepping through the function. So
Do
yeah, that's
do the I plus plus in the top
at the beginning.
and
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
and
let's test
comment.
that.
Yeah, comment out all the times you increment it and comment out line 52 to 54. It looks like it's going to do the exact same thing.
You
Um,
said 52.
yeah,
You said
that whole
52.
if statement where you have to break right there. Yeah, just comment that out.
Oh yeah, this.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
All right. Try to run that. See if
Yeah,
it. Let me see.
yeah.
Includes is not a
Art inclusion. That's the undefined error I was getting. That's because at some point it becomes undefined. Now, if I run that,
array.
let's see, yeah, okay, and yeah. So this is why I was
Yeah.
iterating like I was.
Hold on. It says also array at I dot includes is not a function. So array at I, that's the problem. It must evaluate to undefined. So what you can do is before you start running all this stuff, you can say like if array at index I even exists. It's kind of weird that it's even like they're like the solution you have is honestly like it's too complicated. Like it really is too complicated. Even if it works, it's like overly complicated. I feel like we should be able to fix it. We should be able to handle that error some kind of way.
I tried to. I just couldn't figure. I was gonna put. I think I tried like using type of. So I put if array type of equals to undefined or something like that, or equals to blank, I think, or something, then I wanted it to push out to just break to kick out the function. But who knows, maybe let's try it.
I
Okay,
think I think what's happening is those replacements you're doing like inside of array, like you have like array, like on line 52, for example, now you have
yeah,
array at I minus one equals zero. Like that type of logic is very like complicated. Like I'm not even just from me looking at that, I'm not even sure what's even trying to be like accomplished there. Like
mhm,
why are we putting this zero at one less than the index? You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's just too complicated. Even if it works, it's just overly complicated. Um Yeah. But I mean, either way, like the good
I was
thing
gonna
about this
leave your
problem is
comment right
that,
up in there.
yeah, the good thing about this problem is that like you're able to combine everything you know about like the fundamentals and still get a solution out. The bad thing is that I wouldn't put that in the code base because it's too complicated for people to understand. Um, so that's my opinion on it. But yeah, type of equals undefined or whatever. But yeah. Or you can put, I mean, undefined evaluates to a negative value. So you can put like if not array at index I, like if like exclamation point, like instead of type of, you can just put exclamation point. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
So if
Right. Exactly. And that's the same thing. So
okay, so I tried. Let's see. Actually, oh, I was gonna run out. See what it was doing. Yeah. All right, that includes.
61. Yeah. It's probably because of these replacements. I think it has something
Yeah.
to do with. And
Um.
generally, like another thing I would say, so another best practice is if you're iterating over an array, you don't want to change the array inside of the iteration. We're iterating over array, and then inside of the for loop, we're changing what's inside of array. Like you generally want to put it into like a
uh,
new array, because then I mean, now we run into issues like this where we're not even sure like where this is coming from.
I probably could have. You know what? I probably could have pushed the values into an array.
Right.
So I could have read the values and then, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's just like gets too complicated. It's like
That's
um
not still.
yeah, like I'm iterating over it, but I'm changing it at the same time. And then it looks like it's very like look like it can break
Yes.
easily.
Yeah, it's buggy. It's super buggy.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is this is what brute force looks like. What's a, it's ugly. It's ugly,
Yeah.
but it's beautiful. But yes, I appreciate the feedback. I'm gonna seek to be a little more concise. Yeah.
Yeah, concise and just like to avoid changing the array inside of the iteration of the array, because that's really, really bad, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that, and not iterating I within the array, like just keep it inside of like that on line 45. Because I'm pretty sure there has to be a solution where like you could just iterate over it without like conditionally like iterating, like increasing the I. And that break statement is unnecessary also, because it's supposed to break. It's supposed to like break whenever I is too big. That because that's what the condition is for. Like that whole line on 45, line 45 is supposed to do. Um, the only reason you want to put a break statement is if you want to break out of the loop before we're done looping. So if you want to break through it halfway, depending on some condition, that's when you want to add the break statement. Um, Other than that, like I rarely see break statements used, and I definitely like never ever see like the I being incremented inside of the for loop like that. And if there is a case where it's supposed to increment it like that, I'm just not sure if this is like the problem that we should do it in. But
Yeah, the prime case.
yeah, um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Keep those things in mind. Oh no. What happened? I don't know. I don't know.
Let me
Oh,
let me share my screen. And I'll just
all
start
right,
like
cool.
React stuff.
Cool. Thank you guys for letting me present. And like I said, that was super duper fun.
Yeah, it looked like a fun problem. So
Yeah, it was.
let me I'm going to share my screen. I'm just pulling up the code on my side first. So today we're gonna go over, and to be honest, like that, this may be the like that what Jay just presented may be the only one for today, depending on how long we go through this React stuff. But I definitely want to push through this. Let me share my screen. Share desktop. Okay, cool. So I'm basically starting the React app that we had last time, and the very first thing I want to do is further explain what use effect does. And after I further explain what use effect does, I'm gonna go in and explain again what this context is. Actually, so use effect first, then I'll explain what useReducer is, and then I'll go back to use context to this context so that we can see like how it kind of like ties in together. But yeah, this is the app. I'm actually gonna erase some of these things because I want to show what this does. Let me delete. Actually, I'm not gonna delete them. I'm just going to. Yeah, I'm gonna just delete this actually. So inside of here, and I'm gonna try to do all of this inside of just app. So inside of app, I'm gonna have a button. I'm gonna give a very basic example. And this button is going to be a plus button, and this button is going to be a minus button. So if I refresh the it was supposed to hot reload, but we got this plus button, we got this minus button. Let me zoom in so that we can see this. Also, let me put some state in here because I'm really ultimately going to put like a counter. So the count, and I'm gonna have set count. We should know what use state does already, and that's what I'm using right now. We're gonna initialize it at 0, and we're gonna put the count in here. I'll just put a span with the count, and the count is here. When we press the plus button, it's going to increment. When we press the minus button, it's going to decrement. So I'm gonna give this on click here, and I'll give it some function increment. And I'm gonna create this function in a little bit, and I'll give this an on click as well. And I'll decrement. Did I spell this wrong? Yes, I did. So increment is going to be here, and decrement is going to be here. So what increment is going to do, it's going to do set count. And this is one thing I wanted to actually, before I do this, I just want to show you that this actually works. So plus, and this is going to cancel log minus. Right. And if y'all have questions, like feel free to just stop me. I'm just like setting up the code, but if you have questions, like let me know.
I do have a slight question.
Yeah.
So like in increment, you didn't have to put the parentheses. I noticed when you for your function value. So as long as you wrap them in those braces, then that's sufficient.
Right, exactly. So this is the same as this, almost the same as this. The difference is whenever we put this function like directly inside of here, every time, let me format this. Every time this component is recreated, like if the state changes in this component, this return statement renders this whole thing. So this function has to be created every single time this component re-renders. So by me putting it inside of a function, like a variable like this, these variables they're not recreated because they were already created. So this references a variable that's already created. So it kind of like saves your app some time. That's why we didn't put it like directly in here, for example, like this.
So I noticed like in the Cold War problems, they like recursion, but sometimes it seemed like, especially in this case, it's better not to recurse the problem. It's better to just separate everything out,
I mean, so the recursion,
even for readability's sake.
what do you mean by
Readability sake. So like, for example, instead of just tossing an increment function inside of the onClick, you separate it out, call it increment. So now that I know, oh, okay, this is what this does. Like if this was more than just 10, 2 lines of code, it'd be easy for me to tell what it does because of the name.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point also. Yeah, so that's increment, that's decrement, right? But yeah, I wouldn't say like recursion is part of it. I would just say like, yeah, just for like readability. Remember, recursion is a function calling itself. So if decrement called itself, this would be an infinite loop until we break out of it some kind of way with some kind of if condition. But yeah, that's recursion. But yeah, these buttons they work. We can see that they work here. First thing I wanted to teach y'all, remember when I taught y'all this set count and we like literally pass it a value. Let's say I passed it 10, for example. I'm gonna just save this and I'm gonna press plus and this turns to the number 10. Like obviously that's not what it's supposed to do, but I'm just showing you just for the sake of just for a quick reminder what this does. So we've seen it this way. We can also set this a different kind of way. This function takes two different types of parameters for its first parameter. It can either take a value like this, or it can take a function like this, like an anonymous function. So this function has a value here. It's an arrow function. And this value represents the current value of count. If I literally do a console log of this, first of all, count. So I'm gonna just return 10. I'm gonna return 12, for example. I just want y'all to see like what this is going to do. So I'm going to return 12. Refresh this. I'm gonna hit plus, and I see first of all 0 prints out to the console. What did I do? I printed out the current value of count, which was 0. But we can see that 12 was printed to the actual page. So just by looking at that, can somebody tell me like why, like what, like how does this function even work? Like what are you kind of getting from this function?
I think it first prints out the initial number, which is 0. Then your own function returns 12.
Yeah, so the return value for this is the next value for count. Whatever you return from this function is what count is going to equal. That's what this is for. And now since we have the current value, which is value, and we want to increment, we do value plus 1. So this is returning the current value plus 1. Now I'm gonna save this, and let me refresh just because this 12 is saved in state. If I hit plus now, we can see that it's incrementing by 1 every single time. And that's by using this function. Now we can either do it this way, or we can say set count, and then we can do count plus 1. These two, I mean, minus 1. Like these two are pretty much equivalent. Like we're getting the current value and we're decrementing by 1 in this case. But this way we're actually using the function. But let me
So
go ahead.
Question. Yeah, so the reason that it printed out 0 first is because you set 0 to the default value in your state and your count state function, your set state function for count.
Yep. Correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So let me see if I refresh this. It works the exact same way. Now the benefit of using this function to set the value versus like this way is that if we use a function to set the value, we can start to put like conditions in here. We can put like if statements, we can put like different calculations, or, you know, if there's something that goes into the next value, then we can do it. We can do it that way. But we can always do it this way as well. But what I'm going to do, because I think this is cleaner, I want to actually just use the arrow function like this. And obviously we don't have to use this return value if we're just returning one thing. So I'm gonna do the same thing for this. And these two are the same. So it works the exact same way. Let me see. So that's that. Those two work. Now, the reason I wanted to create this simple functionality was because I wanted to demonstrate what useEffect does. So I'm going to show you. I'm show you a few different ways we can use useEffect. So the first way to use useEffect is to use it like this. Like this is literally a function that takes up to 2 parameters. The first parameter has to be a function. The second parameter has to be like an array of dependencies. And I'm gonna get into like what exactly that means, the dependencies. But first, I'm just gonna pass it a function, anonymous function, just an arrow function here. And I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna do a console log, and I'm just gonna say updating. And if you can't tell already, whenever this app re-renders, this useEffect gets fired every single time this app re-renders. So this app is going to re-render every time we change the state inside of the component. Anytime the state in the component is changed, it updates. And every time it updates, this useEffect is going to run. So we're going to see this log to the console every time we press one of those buttons. So I'm going to show you real quick. Let me just refresh. We can already see before I even press any buttons, this ran 2 times. It runs, I think it runs the first time this component is initialized, and then it runs again when this component is like, is rendered to the screen. I think that's the behavior of it. Don't quote me on that, but let me just clear this out and press this button. So if I press the update button, it updated. Press it again, it updated. We can see literally every time the app re-renders, it updates. Like in this gets run every single time. Now what I'm gonna do as well is let me create another state variable. And I'm gonna put this in state as well. I'll just put like name. Right. Let me put a break statement so that we can see it on another line. Okay, cool. Hi, Isaiah. Right. So let me empty that. As we can see, this is the exact same behavior every time the state is updated. useEffect gets updated, but sometimes you want to do a specific thing when a certain piece of state changes. For example, let's say I only wanted to update this whenever name changes, for example. And let me actually get another button on here, and I'll say change name. And I'll give this an on click. And I'll say change name here, and I'll say set name, and I'm going to set it to whatever the current value is plus, like, I don't know, like an H. I'm gonna add an extra H at the end of my name every time I change the name. So let me just do this. So first I want you to notice, like, every time I press change name, we see it updating. That useEffect gets updated every single time. And even when I change the actual state of the count, it gets updated and it gets run every single time. But if I wanted to only update this when my name change, I would pass it a second parameter of dependencies. Now, this array has to contain all of the values that that you want to watch out for. So I'm gonna put name in here. So what this says is every time name updates, we want to run this function right here. The only time we want to run this is when name updates. So if I save this and let me just refresh real quick. Let me clear this. I'm gonna press this. We can see that it's not running anymore. If I press this, the count is changing. So it's I mean, we set it so that it only runs when name changes. But when I press change name, we can see that up is now that function is updating. Do this make sense? Like any questions on like what's going on here?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So basically with useEffect, if it takes a function and a dependency, you say basically, and if you don't put a dependency in there, everything is basically it's basically accounted in the update. But if you put a dependency in there, then that's just specifically what is going to be counted as updating, basically.
Right, exactly. Yep. That's correct. So if I let me just refresh real quick. Go ahead.
So instead of using like why would I use a use effect instead of using like an on-click function or something like that? Like how can I use effect in a greater capacity than like an on-click or something?
So sometimes like in your app, you want to watch out for different changes. Now, like for example, like here it's a little different because we're using on click and only when we click this, the state actually changes. But sometimes in your app, the state changes like for different reasons. Maybe like the state changes because a user, I don't know, entered some information somewhere else that affects state in a different part of the app. And
like submitted a form,
yeah, like
or something.
Submit a form, or if like let's say they submit a form, right? And then you check all the values in the form, and one comes back as is not a valid value. For example, it asks you for your email, it's not a valid email. Like that, then you can like change. You can change like maybe some error state. Like, let's say you have like error in state and set error. Let's say your error is changed or your error is updated because they didn't put a right email. So then you would say, okay, you would put error here. And then, obviously whenever the error gets triggered, whenever the set error gets triggered, this function is going to get triggered as well. But that's just like one, I'm not even sure if that's even the best example of this, but you do need this use effect sometimes whenever things update. I think a better example of this is whenever you're watching like global state, like if the state in one component changes, you want to watch for that state change in a different component. And in that case, like like in this component, I'm watching for that state change. Like only this component will contain the information that it needs to like to do some additional tasks or whatever. Like it has the count in here, it has the name in here, or like, I don't know, only this component can do specific things. That's when you would use something like this. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get better examples like as we like do like projects with these, but I think I guess the best takeaway is that you're able to watch for a state change and you do it in one function. So that's that. So we looked at two ways to use use effect. And I'm gonna comment these out because I just want to show y'all two ways. So this is the first way. This one updates every single time state changes inside of this component. This one updates every time name changes. What if we want to run this code one time inside of this component, and only one time? That's when we'll use this, where we'll pass it a function like we always do, and then we'll pass it an empty dependencies array. And what this does is this literally runs one time and only one time throughout the app, because there's no, because we have an array of dependencies and there's no values inside of here, like it knows to update only when the values inside of this array updates. But since there's no values in there, it forces it to only run one time. So that's what this is going to do. So if I refresh here, obviously it runs twice. I'm honestly not even sure why it's even running twice. But either way, like we can see that it doesn't run anytime state gets updated. It literally runs one time, well, two times here technically. I think the second time is coming from React actually. I think this is really only running one time. Yeah, I think React behind the scenes is doing another update and it's showing us. Go ahead.
I wanted to say that it was for I read some why it runs twice. I think it's from the React strict mode.
Okay.
That's
React strict mode. Let me see something. Yeah, maybe that is it. Let me take that out. Yeah, you're right. It was strict mode.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. In strict mode, just for context, like what this does, I guess that's one thing it does. it runs twice. But another thing this do is it'll give you warnings whenever you're using something that's outdated in React. Like if you're using some old way of writing React, it'll give you a warning and say, hey, we actually updated that. We don't use it that way anymore. But let me just, I'm taking that strict mode out because I don't want it to throw anything off. But yeah, we can see that it runs one time. Thanks for that tip, Sam. But yeah, it runs one time. Now, let me see what time is it? 11:15. So now we know how to run it every time, how to run it when one thing updated, and how to run it once. And an example of when this is useful, whenever we're running it one time, is when we want to make like an API call. Like if we wanted to like let's say a user logged in, right? And like the login came back successful. What you then want to do is like make another API call to get like all of the users' information, like their name, age, whatever. Like let's say we're on Facebook, or is it like relationship status and whatever else information they have for a person. Like they'll make an API call, it'll send the user ID, and then it'll come back with all of the information for the profile. So something like that, you want to run one time, and you will run that within this use effect. So you will make that fetch call. Fetch, you give it some URL, you do dot then, you know, that whole thing that we did or whatever with like the fetch call. So that's what this is mainly used for. Use when fetching data, like fetching initial data, I would say. Any questions on anything so far? Okay. All right, cool. So that is use effect. And those are the 3 ways to use it. Another thing I want to teach really quick before I go back to context is something called useReducer. And let me actually pull it up here really quick. useReducer. And the reason I'm pulling up here is to make sure I don't mess up the syntax. Okay, cool. So, all right, cool. So useReducer is set up like this. Let me start writing it down. So right now, so far, what we've done was put state inside of like the use state variable. I'm gonna comment this out for now, and I'm just gonna remove this whole thing here, that name. gonna keep counting here, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna make an example with this one. So right now we're saving state and with use state, but I want to save this with use reducer instead. Use reducer is another way to save state in your app. The difference with use state and use reducer is that use reducer, you get more control over like how you update state, and also state is updated in a very specific way. It's a very like readable way of updating state. And I'm gonna set this up for y'all so y'all can see like how exactly this works. So very similar setup to use state, except for using use reducer like that. And the first parameter that use reducer takes, that use reducer gives you is like your state, so to speak. So I'm gonna just say state right here. Okay, this is my state. And the second one is a function. Now this function is normally named dispatch, and that's just by convention. So I would just name it dispatch. So this function is used to update state, and I'm going to show you how this function even is used to even do it. It's the same concept as this. The first one is state. The first one is state. The second one is used to update state. The second one is used to update state. Both of these are functions, but you're going to see the difference between these two in a second. This use reducer, it takes 2 parameters instead of 1. So this use state only took 1. It took the initial state. So, but for use reducer, it takes a function for the first parameter, and the second parameter, it takes some initial state. This function I have to define myself. So I'm gonna name this reducer. And this naming convention is like, this is naming convention that I'm doing here. Like dispatch and naming this reducer are both like naming conventions. But at the end of the day, I could have named these whatever. I could name this ABC if I wanted to, but I'm just gonna name it reducer there. So I'm just make sure, yeah, it's named reducer here as well. And this is the initial state. So what I'm gonna do, right, instead of using count, I'm going to put state here. And this should give me the exact same thing. Let me make sure set count is not defined. Let me comment all of those out. Okay, I see what the problem is. So let me just comment this out. Yeah. So if I go back here and refresh, we can see that 0 is here. Obviously, we didn't set up the increment or the decrement. I commented out everything. But the first thing I want you to know is that like that 0 is currently right there. And that 0 is coming from here because this is the initial state. Now, what I'm actually going to do is give the initial state as an object. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit, count. And I'm gonna put name here as well, Isaiah. So now the initial state is going to be this object, and that's what state is. And instead of printing state here, I'm gonna put state dot count, because that's gonna point to that 0, and that's why 0 is still here. Obviously, if I did state dot name, we can see that Isaiah is here now inside of state. But I just wanted to show you that just for like comparison. Anybody have any questions before I keep moving along?
So far, so
you
good.
What? Hold on, I got one. Hold on.
Mhm.
So the state, what's the naming convention on the use reducer? Is that the naming convention like state, dispatch, use reducer, and
Right.
I guess your default value?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, state, yep, dispatch, and then reducer here. So yeah.
So
Mhm.
go ahead. No, you was about to say something else. I need that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and initial value, just like you said, like that's all that is. And this can it literally just drops right in. I separated it like that so y'all can see what was going on, but I'm gonna leave it like this because I think this is better. Like you'll press
Now,
like that.
so I was gonna say with this, I can do multiple. I can define multiple different states. I only need one useReducer function
Right.
in my whole app, and I can initialize all of my state changing variables like with this single function, correct?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's one of the benefits
Okay,
you get, from using useReducer. Yeah.
real sick. Like, and that's why you could just go state. That's why you could just call it state. Now, what does the dispatch and the reducer do? Like, what do those do?
Right. So I'm about to do something real quick. So I'm gonna show you what this does for us. So right now, so action is another thing, another convention. Like this is a parameter. So when I run dispatch, right? Actually, let me just show y'all something before I even I'll show you something. So before I explain what it is, I'm gonna show you this. Let me see. When we press increment, I'm gonna run dispatch, and I'm gonna say type. I'm gonna just say hey really quick, just to keep this simple. So when I press increment, dispatch is gonna be run with hey. Just remember that. Now up here inside of reducer, I'm returning this object, and I'm logging out whatever action is. So if I press plus, we can see that this says 20 now. Now, what we can conclude is line 8. So line 8. Hold on, why is it? I just logged that action. Oh no. State. It takes 2 parameters. It takes 2 parameters. Let me go back. All right. So let me refresh this. I'm gonna press plus, right? 2 things logged out. So first thing we notice is that count is now 20. The first thing we can conclude is whatever is returned from the reducer is the new state. So we reference state.count right here. Count before was 0. But since we return this object from the reducer, the new state is this object right here. It doesn't even contain name in it anymore because name was erased from there. It's literally overwritten. It replaced this whole state right here with whatever was returned from this reducer function. That's the first thing. That makes sense. Let me know if that sounds confusing.
Yeah, because it returned, like you said, a new object, right? So instead of you saying return count or state.count equals 20, you return an entirely new object with the new value of 20 and the name is not included.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Second.
All right, cool. Thanks, Terrence.
Second thing we see that is 2 things log out here. First thing that logs out is the current state, like the current state that we're currently on. The second thing that logs out is hey. The reason that logs out is because we're logging it right here, the action. This is what logs out. Anytime we call a dispatch, this is going to be the action that is replaced inside of this reducer. And I'm gonna show y'all why this is even as helpful as it is in a second. And this is the current state. So if I press this button now, we know that count 20 is the state. So we're gonna see that. So if I press plus again, we see count 20. That's the current state that we're on, and it logs hey again inside of this function for the action. Now I'm gonna show y'all how to use this action to change your state. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do something a little bit different. Instead of passing this a string, I'm gonna pass this an object. This object is going to have two parameters. I mean, two keys. So the first one is type. Type is going to be increment. This is all convention, by the way. We always pass it an object and we give it a type. So increment is the type. Payload. Payload is what you want to set it equal to. So the type, so actually let's not do payload right now. I just want to do increment right now because I want to simplify this as much as possible. Whenever we use dispatch, we have the option to give it two things. One is type and one is payload. And I'll show you what payload is in a second. And I'll use that with like name, but for now we just working with count. So let me erase this. I'm gonna save this, and if I go here, let me just refresh so that it starts at empty state. If I press plus, we can see that this printed out this object, the same one we just passed to dispatch. So this logged out. So what we can do with that is we can set up a switch statement. Now, a switch statement is just like an if statement. It's literally the exact same concept.
Is it the same one in JavaScript? The same switch in JavaScript? So switch, case, and default?
Right. Exactly.
Okay, cool.
I always forget the I always forget the way to write it. So I always go to W3 school and I just pop that in. But
hey, that worked.
Yeah, let me get rid of some of this stuff. We don't even need that break statement. The default, we're going to return state as the default, and we're going to pass action.type in here. So if the type equals increment, and now let me not repeat myself. I'm gonna put this into a variable. I'm gonna say actions. One of the actions is increment. So I'm gonna replace this with actions.increment. So if action.type equals action.increment, and remember, action.type, see action, this is the action. So dot type equals increment. So we're literally checking to see if the type is increment. So if the type is increment, what we're going to do is we're going to return the new state from here. Let me return new state. So I'm going to use the spread operator to put the current state inside of the new state. But what I want to update is the count. And the count is going to be the current state's count plus 1. So again, whenever we see this increment string come in to this switch statement, we're gonna run this code right here. And what this code is going to do is going to return the new state that we have. This new state is literally going to return all of the state that we already had before. That's what the spread operator does. Anything after this is going to replace the values that was inside of here. So the initial state contained count, but since we have count under here, this is going to overwrite the current count, and we want to overwrite the current count to be state.count plus 1, so that we're incrementing the value. So, and let me actually console log state here so y'all can see that this is actually changing. So if I just refresh real quick, I'm gonna clear this, I'm gonna press plus. We can see that 1 was printed out right here. This count says 0. The reason it says 0 is because we logged it before we even did any changes. So that was the count before it updated. But if I press this button again, we can see that the count changed. So that this was the count before it did the update to make it 2. And we can also see that name is there as well. So this is successfully like working, like and the benefit with this is that we literally just had to set this up in a reducer. Now, every time we want to increment the state, all we got to do is call this dispatch function with the type of increment. Like that's all we have to do to update the state. Any questions on that before I do the decrement? It's going to be the exact same process.
Oh, so I was excuse me.
Mhm.
I'm getting emotional over here. All this knowledge is just it's getting me choked up. But no, so all you have to do to decrement is set up your actions dot type to be decrement. So you could just copy literally that whole case
Right.
and then just put decrement on there. And then you
So case,
and
yeah,
then copy the case from 14 to 18 essentially, and just put decrement in there and -1.
correct. So actions dot decrement and then -1, exactly. So for and I'm referencing the string this inside of here once again. So I'm just going to copy the same thing here and just do actions dot decrement instead of increment. Decrement, or that is increment. Decrement, cool. So now the decrement works as well. Increment, decrement, increment, decrement. And hold on, why is that not? Did I take out the console log?
Yes.
Yeah, I took it out. Okay, that's why I wasn't logging. Okay, cool. Yeah, I took out the console log. But either way, we can see that it works. So this is like in the beginning, I said that useReducer gives you more control over how state changes. This is what I mean by giving you more control. We can literally set up as many of these cases as we want. This can be as long as you want it to make. It could be 100 lines long if you want it to be 100 lines long, because only one of these cases is going to run every single time. That's just how this works. And because it's being returned like this, it's gonna exit the function as soon as it hit the case. So you don't have to worry about like performance or anything like that. So you set up all your conditions here in all of the different ways that the state can change inside of these like returns here. And obviously we always want to default to the current state. So if I send a random like I don't know, if I send a random type, for example, that's not taken into account, like it won't break anything, but it just won't work, because we're defaulting to the exact same state that we were before. Like that's a default if none of the cases meet. Obviously the decrement still works, but the increment doesn't work anymore because we're not checking for that string. I'm gonna put this back. And then that works. All right. All right, cool. So let me delete this stuff here. I'm gonna clean this up so we can see this in action before I bring in use context. You're still free to use the use state in your projects if you want, but you also have an extra way to update state with this useReducer. So now what I'm about to do.
Oh,
go ahead.
quick question, and it's real quick. So I could replace the switch function with an if function and it'll still work properly.
Right.
I know switch function is probably a little bit easier in this case because it's just listening for action type, but
Yeah.
I could use an if, else, then else if, etc. statement, and it'll still work exactly the same.
Right. So if we do like if action dot type equals this, then we return that. But you can see that this is already becoming like really like long.
Yeah.
We gotta write this whole thing out every single. We gotta write this part we write out every single time, and that's just code. So yeah,
Sick. Okay. I got to start using that switch more.
yeah, it's just definitely a way to save time. It automatically compares without that double equal or triple equals. So yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, switch is generally used if you have like a lot of different if statements. If you have like 20 if statements, you want to consider using a switch statement, because 9 times out of 10 that's it's going to be better for you to use it. Now, I mean, obviously the if statement will still work, but you might save yourself some time like typing if you use switch instead. So that's that. Yeah. So let me oh right. I also said I was gonna do something for name also. Let me do this again. Actually, that is fine, because honestly, name is gonna be the exact same way. No. We're gonna use payload. That's what it was. So I'm gonna show y'all the payload really quick before I move on. Let me do this. I'm gonna say change name, and I'll just put the name directly in here. I'll just do state dot name, and when we press change name, we're gonna do something. I just want to show you how it looks. So the name is inside this button. When we press this, I want this name to change. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some quick logic. I'll say me, myself, and I. So me, myself, and I. It's going to be the names. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let me do a console log real quick. I'm going to just do math to dot random, and we're going to do dot random. We want to multiply that by names dot length, and we're going to do a math dot floor on this. I'm basically just going to get a random index inside of this array, and I'm going to change the name to whatever index I'm currently at, random index. Let's do that, and math dot floor. Let me just log the random index real quick, just so I can make sure this is actually working. So if I do this, we either log 0, 1, or 2. That's fine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna log name at either 0, 1, or 2, so we can get a random name from that array every single time. So now we get me, myself, and I randomly in that array. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna use all of this logic to update the name and state. So first, I'm gonna say update name, set name. Actually, this is anytime you want to update, you want to do set. So set name. I'll do set name. I could have put like set. Actually, no, increment and decrement was fine, but a lot of the time you want to use this convention is set. So set name. So whenever I call set name, I'm gonna put that case really quick. Format this. This is going to be dot set name. Say name here, and I'm gonna say action dot payload. So anytime we have a case where it reads set name inside of the actions, I'm going to return the original state, but I'm also going to update the name to be the payload. So just to show you how that looks, I'm going to do this. It's going to be the exact same setup almost. So we're going to dispatch set name, and then we're going to give it a payload. Payload is going to be name at that random index here. So we get the random name from here, and then it gets passed into action. So it checks action.type. Action.type is going to be set name, just like we see down here. Action.type is set name, but action.payload is what we want to set it equal to. So when we get set name, so when action.type equals set name, we're going to set name to action.payload, which is the random name. So if I press here, we can see that it's changing to that random name every time. Anybody confused about that or have questions? Okay. So with useReducer, we use dispatch to actually change the state. And with dispatch, we can pass it type by itself. It always takes a type. It always takes a type. And then it optionally takes a payload. And the payload is generally what you want to set the new thing to. Now we can give this whatever we want. We can give this an object, we can give this as an array, we can give it whatever we want as the payload, as long as like the payload is used to change whatever is there. Like I could have did it like this if I wanted to. Payload.name. Now, obviously I have to update this where this is going to be action.payload.name like that. And now it's going to set the value to whatever I pass in. So you just got to make sure you know the type that you have to pass in for the payload, like how is this structure supposed to look in order to update the state. But that's the only thing you really need to know. All right, cool. I'll just leave it like this, action.payload.name. And I'll actually, yeah, that's fine. I'm not even gonna make it more complicated than this. This is basically how it's supposed to go. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this in combination with the use context. So let me see, it's already 11:44. I kind of feel like I don't want to teach you anything new because I know this was already a lot. I'm gonna let this sink in. I want y'all to actually like go through this and like make sure y'all completely understand like how this reducer even works, how this switch statement even works, like why this return is doing what it's doing currently. And I'm gonna give y'all this. I'm gonna give y'all this code. Actually, let me just paste this in now into the Slack channel. I want y'all to understand this before we move on to before we move back to use context, because I want all of the connections to I want everything to connect together. Let me put this in the thing. Let me stop sharing for 2 seconds. I'm gonna drop it in the chat. I'm gonna put it in the useful information chat.
I'm gonna tell you right now, my brain's smoking.
Yeah.
them gears overclocked right now.
Yeah. I'm gonna share the screen again. But yeah, is there something that's like confusing about it, or is like you just have to like kind of like practice it to sort of like wrap your mind around it? Like what?
Oh, go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah. So I know with these it's kind of the difficult thing about this is seeing the pattern. But once you see the pattern, like you're gonna once you understand the pattern, you understand how these dots connect. But yeah, did you have any specific questions, or you just needed to practice it?
It's probably gonna end up being practice, and then just knowing the best practices. You know, I guess that was the thing I was really trying to get the syntax, the structure, and then the best practices to make sure that when I use it, it makes sense. Like state, making sure to call it state, dispatch, reducer, and then throwing in your default values, your action, and then your actions, which is the actions that will change the state. Your action is the action being currently implemented in your case values, and you probably want to hook your computer up, low-key, your battery close.
Yeah, 11%. Yeah, I'm gonna live on the dangerous side for
My man, let's go.
Yeah.
Don't push it.
I'm about to throw in since we only have a few minutes left, I'm gonna throw in one more thing into here. Is
It's
just
recorded.
yeah, I'm gonna have tip y'all overboard, you know what I mean? So just so we can like get something small but additional out of this. So I'm gonna name something called Action Creator.
Oh shoot.
This is a pattern that's used in combination with these dispatch things. So this is what I'm gonna do. We're doing a lot of like repeating ourselves, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to say type and payload, and the payload payload is going to be optional. Let's see. So anytime we call action creator, we want to pass it a type. So the type is going to go in here, and the payload is going to go here like that. And obviously, I'm using those shortcuts instead of doing type, type, and payload. Payload, the action, I mean, the key and the value is the same. So I'm gonna use the shortcut here. So, and I'm even gonna put this all on one line. So instead of calling this dispatch every time, what I can do to shorten up my code is call the action creator, pass it the type, and pass it the payload if I have a payload. I don't have to have one. It's going to default to an object, but we probably not going to need it either way. So it's going to be an action creator instead. Action creator. Decrement. Let's erase that. An action creator here again. And this is going to be set name. And the payload is going to be this object right here. And delete this. Now I don't have to write dispatch anymore. And this is a one-liner now. So obviously let's test this out, make sure I didn't break anything. That still works. This one still works, and we can still work with the name.
Yo, teach me how to code. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And we can even, simplify this even more since we use arrow functions. Put all that on one line. It's the same stuff.
Gosh. So beautiful.
Yeah. And we can even get this down to one line if we wanted to. Do that. I wouldn't even try to simplify this one. This one, yeah, I'm gonna leave this one the same. But all of that is going to do the same stuff.
And I meant recursion the last time. I think I said refactor. I meant recursion. I mean refactor, not recursion. So yeah, you was refactoring the code.
Right. Let me throw this in to that chat also. So this is the simplified version. So yeah, now I'm on 8%. But yeah, we got 9 minutes left. Is there any questions before we end class?
Nope. Tuesday, same deal. Just knock out some Cold Wars, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take this in. I don't think I have a question either.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I said I'm gonna definitely have to watch the video again for the payload part.
Yeah.
I love this. Question. Okay, so I do have a question. If the payload wasn't an object and it was just for example, you have the object where count and name is there. I think in your payload you had just I forget exactly what you turned the payload to an object, but if you didn't turn it to an object and you wanted to keep that default value blank, would you just set the payload to blank, essentially? Like a blank string?
You can set the payload to whatever you want. Like the default, it can be whatever you want. It's just not going to be used. The only reason for me to and this still works exactly the same. The only reason
No, okay.
for me to even put a default value here is so that whenever I'm calling this dispatch, we have a value to pass in. For example, let's say I just like left it empty like that. It might just pass in undefined actually. Yeah, it's probably passing it undefined. So I'm pressing
'Cause I
this
was-
button and like there's no value in there. Let me do something. Let me see. Console log action dot payload. So I go here, I press plus, it's undefined. Forget the default value. It's just gonna put undefined if it's not thrown in. It's fine.
So if I don't want it to pass in undefined for whatever reason, then I could just set it to blank, or
Yeah,
how do I basically set it to nothing?
or just nothing. Yeah, it's fine. Um, yeah, like, but I think the undefined is fine. That this is just empty string. But I think the undefined is fine. I shouldn't have put that thing there. This is how I want y'all to do it. Like, don't do how I did it before. Like, this is fine because it's fine.
But
It's fine. Yeah.
the reason I asked is just in case, I don't know. I'm thinking of like edge cases and stuff like that now. And I may want to set that payload to some default value for whatever reason. And so I'm just thinking of how to like totally, if I wanted to erase it essentially, I guess I just wouldn't call it. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. And so let's
okay.
say we want the default to like Jamal. Like, let's say I did set name and I just didn't pass in anything like that. Yeah, then the name is going to default to Jamal because that was a default value that we passed in. So that's what's referencing, object.name. But this case is I couldn't really see a use case with this. Because that's very specific. It's like, okay, I wanted, or you know what? How about this? How about this? This is better. Sure, state. There we go.
It's too powerful.
We want to default it to initial state, the payload. There we go. So it don't matter if I don't pass in anything. It's going to stay. Yeah, it's going to stay exactly the same because the initial state is the same. So that's fine.
And then hit Isaiah again one more time.
Hmm.
Wanted you to hit that Isaiah again, that Isaiah button one more time. Let me see what it do.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sick.
Yeah, because it's always going to pass it. This is essentially the same as passing that name, the initial state like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine because I mean it's going to do the exact same thing. If we go through the logic, it literally just drops in a regular state and then drops in payload. I mean action.payload.name as the name value, which happens to be the exact same thing inside of here. So it'll be payload.name. So which is so yeah. You could do this, and this is fine if you want to do it this way. But like I said, like you don't have to. Like I would honestly just leave it at as not. I wouldn't even put the initial state inside of a variable if you didn't want to. It's up to you. And I would just leave this just empty like that. So yeah, and just make sure you're calling this with the actual value or whatever. What's the names at random index. Okay. It's the name. Cool. Yeah. All right, cool. Any other questions? All right, cool. All right, I'll see y'all on Sunday. Definitely still meet on Tuesday. Solve those code words problems. Make sure y'all post it in the chat, the one y'all worked on. And yeah, on Sunday we're gonna go over again what use context does and what create context is. This one here. we're going to use this in combination with the useReducer. Where is it? With useReducer. So make sure y'all understand how this works before Sunday. Okay.
Cool.
All right, cool.
Mm.
I will see everybody on Sunday. And y'all meet on Tuesday again.